good afternoon to my classmates and Mr. Epke. Let me begin by asking you a few questions. What makes marijuana worse than alcohol and cigarettes? Is marijuana more addictive than nicotine? Does marijuana lead to violence, crime, and death more than alcohol? The answer to these questions is no. Marijuana is not worse than these legal drugs. My partner James and I intend to explain to you how, as the resolution states, that the state of Pennsylvania should legalize marijuana for recreational use. This means, as my partner said, that it is being consumed for the enjoyment or recreation of the person and not for medical or religious purposes. Let me just share with you the comments made by Congress when they initially made marijuana illegal in 1937. Sexual desires are stimulated and may lead to unnatural acts such as indecent exposure and rape. Marijuana use ends in the destruction of brain tissue and nerve centers and does irreparable damage. If continued, the inevitable result is insanity, which those familiar with it describe as absolutely incurable and, without exception, leading in death. Obviously, Congress was entirely misinformed back then, and they still are now. Sadly, the amount of propaganda on the other side is large. The only scientific evidence produced by Congress when they initially made it illegal were two veterinarians who said that dogs were specifically vulnerable to marijuana. The American Medical Association tried to make people see reason and the lack of evidence against marijuana, but the government didn't listen and they were disregarded for criticizing the government instead of trying to help. As my partner said, we support real facts over the reputation of marijuana. I would also like to explain why the system of marijuana prohibition is inherently wrong for our country and for our people. All of the information I'm about to share with you comes from an extensive study done by Normal.org. Despite the government's focus on marijuana, making it a stage 1 drug, marijuana is more prevalent than ever before, more accessible to children, and it has a large amount of violence associated with the illegal sale of it. Over 100 million Americans have tried marijuana, and 1 in 10 Americans tried regularly, despite the prohibition. It is part of our basic principles as human beings that we should be able to do what we want as long as we don't harm or involve anyone else. The time has come for our country to amend this criminal prohibition and replace it with a system of legalization, taxation, regulation, and education. Regulation means the control over marijuana. Our plan would include control over who could produce, distribute, and consume marijuana. While our plan promotes safety and control, prohibition means the lack of control, which jeopardizes the people rather than promoting safety. Prohibition puts the production and distribution of marijuana in the hands of dealers, cartels, and criminal entrepreneurs. According to the CASA, prohibition also provides young people with easier access to marijuana. As my opponent Liz tried to say, that it is a gateway drug, but according to the Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that marijuana is a gateway drug. Our plan would involve the strict regulation of marijuana, a similar system to alcohol regulation. Commercial production of marijuana would be limited to government-licensed producers. Quality control and potency are regulated by the state, and information is made available to the public. Retail sale of the product is only to be carried out by state-licensed dispensaries, and Pennsylvania will impose harsh restrictions on who may obtain it, only those over 21, where they may purchase it, and how much of it they can purchase, no more than 5 grams, such as in the Netherlands. Furnishing the product to minors and use in public will be strictly prohibited. Now let me show you how marijuana will have a positive effect on America, by looking at other examples of it around the world. Marijuana was legal in India until 1985, and there were very little problems. The United Nations Bulletin on Narcotics found that marijuana had little effect, especially when it comes to violent crime. The Netherlands also had a great experience with marijuana legalization. The International Journal of Drug Policy found that people who bought marijuana in Amsterdam were 85% less likely to purchase other drugs than the people of San Francisco, where the prohibition is. The journal also found that the use of the drug did not go up when it was legalized, and that use of marijuana among adolescents in the Netherlands is the same as the USA. As Time.com states, many other countries in Europe, such as Luxembourg, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, have decriminalized marijuana, and they all have lower drug usage than the USA, which maintains its strict policy against drugs. As my opponent Liz tried to say, that it is more addictive than nicotine and alcohol, but she gave no evidence to prove this. We are not saying that it is as addicting. We're saying that it's less addicting. It also doesn't naturally have nicotine. It is added by the dealers that I mentioned earlier. America will greatly benefit if this plan is put into place. Jobs, taxable ones, will be created, the state will make a lot of money, and our jails will be less crowded. The versatile and useful hand plan will be put to use, people will have the freedom to do what they want, and law enforcement like the DEA can worry about serious crimes. The benefits of legalizing marijuana are too many to count. People are going to get it anyway, so why not let the FDA regulate it and let Pennsylvania make money off of it? If alcohol and cigarettes, which are more dangerous, addiction-prone, and harmful than marijuana, can be legalized and maintained, then cannabis can too. Thank you.